everyone, Adam here, Wizard Podcast. I'm back again with another review for you. The fine folks at Strike Media were nice enough to send over a review link for a new British gangster movie called The Bezonians. I know when I hear British gangster movie, I think Guy Ritchie. I'm sure you do too, because really, who's done it better? In America, we have Scorsese, a few others, but the British gangster movies are really Guy Ritchie. And The Bezonians is, it's kind of reminiscent of that. The writer-director's name is Savvas D. Michael. I hope I got the name right, the pronunciation, who has not a huge track record, but he has a few gangster-type movies on his record, and this is very much in that Guy Ritchie style. It's fast, it's funny, it's got the kind of cast of characters that you look for in these types of movies, and it's got the over narration. Obviously these things aren't explicit to Guy Ritchie himself. He didn't invent this. He just kind of has that style. And watching this really made me think of it, which can be a good and a bad thing. It's a good thing because I love Guy Ritchie movies. If you don't love Guy Ritchie movies, this one might not be for you. If you do love Guy Ritchie movies, this one is probably for you. And I say probably because it's not a Guy Ritchie movie. Savvas does have his own voice come through, even though he's using a lot of these elements where maybe you'll be looking for something that it isn't. It's not quite as witty, the comedy, even though there is a good amount of levity to it. And I found myself actually laughing at the movie a few times where the director intended. The performances are good. There's nothing inherently wrong with it, other than it's not a Guy Ritchie movie, which is a really unfair thing to say to any young up-and-coming director. Why I'm here talking about this movie is because I was very pleasantly surprised. Well, it did have those elements, and I said, oh, well, it's like this, but it's not. One, like I just said, it's not really fair to compare a new kind of up-and-coming director to a director who's been doing it at such a high level for so long. And it's not this guy's fault. It's no fault at all that he's not somebody else. He's not supposed to be. He's supposed to be himself. So why I'm talking about this is I see a lot of promise in Savvas's work. And I think as he does this, and I watched some trailers for some of his other stuff, and it has similar stylistic bent to it. I think as he does this and does more and writes more, some of the Guy Ritchie-esque things will fall by the wayside a bit, and some elements that I already started seeing that were his own will kind of rise to the top, where it might be reminiscent of a director that I'm going to go out on a limb and guess that he's a big fan of, and it'll be more his own unique voice. And I believe that's a common thing for comic creators, for anyone who's written music, for anyone who just writes writing, poetry, novels, short stories, whatever it is. You're always going to emulate those who inspired you to get into it first, and your own voice is going to emerge. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think it's a good place to start. I think if Savvas went even further and tried to edit exactly the same and tried to use the exact style, sense of humor, and tried to mimic even down to like the soundtracks, it would have felt more false, where I got to sit down and enjoy the Bezonians mostly for what it was, even though it wasn't quite what my brain was telling me it should be. I hope that makes sense, because the movie shouldn't be anything that it isn't, but that's just where I'm sitting and what I saw in it. I kind of jumped the gun there. I didn't really tell you what the Bezonians was about. It's kind of a strange title. I'm not even positive what Bezonians means. But the Bezonians is a social club in the movie. It's in North London. And this is kind of an English gangster movie that follows Greeks. It's, Greek people living in London. They kind of keep to their own culture and stuff, even though it very much feels like a London set movie. So there's this kind of, the ragtag team, for lack of a better phrase. It's kind of this ragtag team getting into mischief, and they have their colorful cast of characters that all kind of come and go and out of each other's lives. And there's plotting and scheming and low-level crime and slightly higher-level crime, and, a bad mix-up between some of the Greek gangsters and some of the English gangsters. The stars, Savvas D. Michael plays a role in it, a big role. Marina, Sirtis, Vinnie Jones, and Jenny Miller. All the actors do a really good job. There's even a character who, I'm not sure the exact proper term. I believe they say that he's retarded in the movie, but that's more just kind of like gangster slang. I don't believe it is Down syndrome. He had a childhood trauma and then is kind of stuck with the mind of a child. I don't mean to be insensitive to any of this, and the movie has no ill intent and is not callous on anything, even if it does use some coarse language. It is dealing with gangsters. I don't know why I had to give that warning, but I feel like maybe in this day and time we do. That guy even does a good job of not going too far, not taking things to this level where you just don't want it to be. Having the whole plot be this kind of big wild world that you're getting used to, it will go from being kind of broad to focused and broad to focused back and forth a few times as you find the story and the plot and the threads through it and kind of how they tie into each other. They didn't all quite come together as solidly as I would have hoped, but they do interact, and there was nothing that was like you could just cut that limb off and not even feel it. It has nothing, no business being here. There was nothing that egregious. It was a really good effort and a fairly tight script. I'm very curious to see what Savvas does with his career going forward. I love that he's a writer director. I love that he's doing both, because a movie like this with this much intricacy, you can definitely tell is his vision. It was really cool to see Vinnie Jones in it. Happy to see Vinnie Jones in anything. He doesn't have the biggest role, despite being the biggest face on the poster. That was probably a marketing thing because people know who Vinnie Jones is, and some of the other actors, at least for a U.S. audience, might not be as big. But as I said, everyone does a really solid job in it, Vinnie Jones included. And really, Savvas D. Michael doesn't have a ton of acting experience, but I would not have guessed that that was the writer director just putting himself into a role he hadn't earned. He does a great job acting. Another thing I really appreciate the Bezonians was the style in which it was shot. I'm going to give credit here to Savvas, even though I don't know if it was his director of photography. Whatever it was, the director is kind of a catch-all to get this kind of credit. So to the whole cast and crew, great job. But the way this was shot was excellent. A lot of the indie micro budget movies that I watch and review, and I try to grade these things on a curve because a lot of times the budget's small and the shooting timeline is like a week, and there's all sorts of obstacles in the movie's way. So you try to give them the benefit of the doubt. The Bezonians didn't need to be graded on a curve. It feels every bit ready to just be in a local theater where you go and you check it out, even though you're not really familiar with it, and have a great time. The way it was shot, it does a lot of sweeps and tracking shots, and there's always movement in the camera, which adds to the movement of the movie, along with the high energy soundtrack, that things feel like they're happening all the time. That's a great thing to happen in a movie like this with such a wide cast of characters. The dialogue is pretty quick, not quite the rapid fire thing. The cutting is not the cutting was the one place where it didn't feel like a Guy Ritchie movie, where I was saying I think Savvas was putting his own stamp on it, because it's not this cut, really quick, a lot of images with the big whooshing sounds between, which I love in those Guy Ritchie movies, but I like the ever-present, always moving camera without it being kind of like shutter speed in your face. You're going along for the ride, and it's keeping the energy up without being as manic. I'm not saying one is better than the other. I like them both, and I like that Savvas didn't just try to copy everything he saw in another movie. For a movie that's largely people talking, I mean, there's a bit of action, I guess you could say, but it's a gangster movie. There's not, martial arts scenes or tons of, shootouts in the street or anything like that. It's not that type of movie. For a lot of scenes with people talking and things, it never felt low energy to me. It was always kind of an edge of my seat, leaning forward, what's happening next kind of thing as it develops. Being in the world of the North London British gangsters, which is something that I love. I think it's a big thing over here in the States. I mean, I don't know anyone who doesn't like Snatch or Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels. I'm sure they're out there, and they're entitled to be wrong. That's fine. But the Bezonians, I'm sorry, I keep making these Guy Ritchie comparisons, but the Bezonians kind of falls in that same format where you feel the dirty London streets. I'm not knocking London, because you feel it in a way that the characters feel it, where it's like, this is home. This is their safety blanket almost, even though their lives are sometimes at risk. But You get this gritty look at a world that doesn't come across gritty, I think is a cleaner way for me to say that. You're in this lived in world, you're in the world of these Greek immigrants or immigrant families, and it feels foreign enough for a US viewer without it feeling bizarre. It still feels like the real world. It does a good job of putting you in the world, building the world around it without doing like half an hour of exposition. It does the thing where you kind of get introduced to all the characters as they come in. No problem with that. It is someone narrating to you, so it's a person actually telling the audience the story. So of course characters need introductions, and they keep those short, but more importantly, they keep them fun and interesting and memorable. So if they introduce a character doing something crazy for 2-3 minutes, later on in the movie when that character is needed, you're not saying like, all right, so who's this guy again? They're all, 6 foot, 185-pound guys with brown hair. The characters stand out. You're not going to be lost during this movie. I wanted to give a shout out to one actress in particular, and I'm horrible with names. I don't remember the character's name on IMDb, and I think I have it figured out. I believe the character's name is Lola, and the actress name is Lois Brabin-Platt. I hope I got that right because I'm trying to give credit where credit's due. But her character, you'll know the character when you watch it. It's the one that Achilles falls head over heel for. And without going into spoilers, there's a big scene with a poker game that means a lot to the plot involving this character. So that's who it is. I hope it's Lois Brabin-Platt who plays Lola. She kind of gave me vibes as Sharon Stone had in Casino without the scumbag boyfriend weighing her down. I thought the performance was that good, to be frank. I thought she was great. I thought she was captivating. A beautiful woman who does a great job in the role. I wanted to follow her story more, even though there were other characters who I don't want to say more important, but got more screen time involving that storyline. I'm trying to avoid spoilers, but again, I wanted to credit where credit was due. I would watch a movie based on that character, and I would watch her just kind of run the streets in the way that her character commands it. Once again, I want to thank Strike Media for sending me the screener of the Bezonians. I apologize that this didn't come out before the movie was released, but the movie is available now. You should definitely check it out. And in the course of doing a little bit of research for this video, I found out you can rent it right now on Amazon Prime for $2. Like, go rent the movie. Spend the $2. You spent more on less, and I think you're going to enjoy this if you're into those style British gangster movies that I mentioned. I'm also curious to see what Savvas D. Michael has coming up next, and I'm going to reach out to the PR people, and hopefully we can have a conversation, because I think that would be a great interview, and I would like to say I interviewed that guy in a handful of years when we're waiting in line to see his big debut at a local theater, even here in the States, and he's up on the marquee and kind of getting the credit that I think I see budding in him already, that he's going to be that big. We have a lot more new movie coverage, a lot more interviews, a lot more reviews, comic reviews, unboxings, interviews, all the stuff coming your way. You're not going to want to miss out. So make sure you like and subscribe. Also, make sure you listen to So Is Your Podcast every single week wherever you get your podcasts. So Is Your Podcast is your resource for reviews, recommendations, videos, merchandise, and more. All new merchandise on the site right now. Looks really, really cool. I should probably find a less awkward way of showing you guys that. But if you want to see it and you don't want to see it in an awkward way, go to the website, click the TeePublic link, find it on TeePublic. All the characters together, all the characters separated. You can get whatever you want. It ships quick. Prices are good. Definitely check it out. We love hearing feedback, so drop us a note in the comments. Leave us something on social media. All the links can be found after the show and in the show notes. And on a more personal note, a good friend and I have an ongoing comedy comic series. It's called Social Studies. It's a slice of life comedy comic that looks at the high school experience. We style after like 90s sitcoms and Nicktoons and things that we grew up on and inspired us. Having a ton of fun with it, getting a lot of great feedback. There's 9 issues available now. 10 is coming as soon as I hear from the printer that they got the supplies. There's been a little bit of holdup, so our delays are lesser, but that just gives you time to catch up on 9 full color issues out right now on socialstudiescomic.com or on Comixology, including Comixology Unlimited, which is very exciting for us. Check it out. Thanks.